Please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest speaker, Soren Kaplan.
Thanks, guys. Okay. I'm going to start by doing something I have never done before in a presentation. Actually, I did it yesterday with the students. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. We all have dots, but not all of us always connect them. And so I was asked to connect some of my personal dots and my family's history to this whole topic that I'm going to talk about, the power of surprise. So I'm just going to dive right in and take you back to the 1920s and 30s in France. My great-grandfather, Jean Puifourcade, was an Art Deco silversmith. His designs live on today at Puifourcade in Paris, and also Puifourcade has been acquired by Hermes as well. Some of his designs. My favorite is the Art Deco chess set. My great-grandmother from France, this is her 1933 Leica camera, which I now own, and she was one of the first professional female portrait photographers. Anyone know who this is? This is not my great-grandmother. Pablo Picasso. She also took portraits of Henri Matisse. And then there's my grandfather, also French. He moved to New York right after World War II and became a fur designer and had some pretty bold furs. This is a spread in Life magazine in the 1960s. These are some of his designs. Natural Russian ermine tails. If you know what ermines are, there's the peace fur coat. Now, he had some bold designs. And at the same time, he was in an industry that was doing some things like making fur coats out of ermine tails. And he decided to push against the industry. And one day he took out a New York Times ad, full page, and said he was not going to ever again make fur coats out of endangered species. And so he was recognized by the World Wildlife Fund as an innovator in the fashion industry. These are some of his designs from that Life magazine spread. This is in his apartment that I was growing up visiting. You may anyone recognize some of the art in the background? Richard Lindner, that's right. One day he was walking down the street. He had his store on Fifth Avenue, and across the street was an art gallery. He walked in, liked some of the art, made a deal with one of the artists, or with the gallery owner and one of the artists, to trade a fur coat for a piece of art. It happened to be a Nevelson. And he became friends with many of the modern artists of the day in New York City. He threw wild parties. Recognize this guy? There's a book that came out on Andy Warhol's life. There is a chapter called Party at Jacques. It's my grandfather. He was a partier. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a partier, but there is some connection there. Now, I do have a cousin who now was influenced with the same dots that I was. And what she does, she's at UCLA. She teaches design. That is a ball about this big. Anyone recognize what it is? It's not a golf ball. She looked at a piece of pollen under an electron microscope. And she then did a 3D rendering, and this is the result of that 3D rendering. She is looking at things under electron microscopes that we can't see with our bare, naked eyes and bringing them to life so we can all experience them. Anyone know what this is? You're from Georgia, you should know what this is. It's cotton. It's cotton under electron microscope. These are her designs. It's a blouse that mirrors the structure of cotton as you look at it under electron microscope. This is a wool fiber. Notice the jaggedy edges. This is her sweater that she's designed to bring to life those things we can't see with our naked eyes. So I just share these examples with you because we all have those connection points. We all have, President Wallace said, making those connections. It's important to make those connections. It's important to make those connections for us. So I'm going to share with you how my own life has evolved. I'm going to talk about the fork in the road that I had. And I'm going to kind of have revealed some personal things about myself already that I don't normally share. And I'm actually going to share with you, towards the end of my presentation, a personal misstep, maybe, a personal missed opportunity. But I'm going to do it in a way that I'm going to let you guess what it is. And if you guess, you are going to win a highly valuable prize. Highly valuable. The students loved it, and I think faculty will probably like it too. Okay, so this fork in the road. I could either go down the design route formally, or I could choose to study liberal arts and kind of see where things evolve. And I decided to see where things evolved. I wanted to kind of open up to those surprises, see what happened. So I went to UCLA. I studied sociology, but most of my work has been in the field of innovation, helping organizations, teams, individuals think about lateral thinking and design thinking and taking things to the next level organizationally, but also with product, services, business models. So a few years ago, I decided to do something. How many of you have been to Paris? Paris? Oh my gosh, most of you. Great. I decided that I wanted to move my family to Paris for a year. I had 2 daughters at the time, 9 and 11, and I wanted to give them an experience outside of their comfort zones growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I also wanted to write a book, which I did. It's called Leapfrogging. And so we moved to Paris. I put my 2 daughters in public school, and they didn't speak any French. Public school. And it was my youngest daughter. She put 2 words together when we arrived there that I had never heard before in the same sentence. Paris sucks. And I it's like, Paris sucks. Paris is awesome. That's why we're here. Well, it was hard. It was hard. But that's what made it so rewarding in the end. Now, I'm going to talk about an experience that I personally had. I wanted to write my book. I spent about 6 months struggling to figure out how to capture 20 years of innovation experience, leadership development experience into kind of the essence of what makes great organizations, great people, great innovative people innovative. So one day I walked into a little cafe. It's called Cafeotech. And I sat down, opened my laptop, ready to write, took a sip of my latte, and was just blown away. I was just taken back. It was the richest, the boldest, the creamiest latte I'd ever had. And I looked up on the wall, and right there was an article. It was by a guy named David Leibowitz, who wrote a book called The Sweet Life in Paris. It's all about great food in Paris. And he said, this little cafe, Cafeotech, is the #1 coffee spot in all of Paris. Okay, that's interesting. But let me ask, for those of you who have been to Paris, or maybe you haven't, how many bistros and cafes do you think are in Paris? Thousands? 30,000. 30,000 bistros and cafes. I then looked next to the article, New York Times, travel. If you're going to Paris, be sure to visit Arc de Triomphe, Eiffel Tower, and Cafeotech. Cafeotech. So I went up and I talked to Gloria. Gloria is the owner. And I said, what makes you #1 out of 30,000? #1, what are you doing? So here's what she told me. She said, well, I serve 20 types of coffee, and I only serve coffee from a single plantation at one time. So I might go and I visit a plantation. I buy the beans from the plantation owner directly, personally, and I insist on paying a fair trade price for those beans. I then bring them back and I roast them. And I serve coffee that looks like that. She said, I want to spread the nobility of coffee to others. I want to give them that experience. And so what she does is she serves coffee like that, but she also you can go in and you can pay a lot of money to get a flight of coffee. So you can order basically five shots of coffee, and by the time you are just wired. But it's an amazing experience. And so she serves coffee coffee tastings, just like you might have wine tastings. People have learned about Cafeotech, and now budding baristas who want to start their own cafes have contacted her, and so she's responded, and she's created something called Cafeotech University. She's teaching people how to do what she does. They pay a lot of money to learn from her for a month, and then they work for free in Cafeotech for another couple months. She then supports them as they go off and coaches them. And they go off in Paris and France and far-off places as China and Ethiopia. They start their own cafes. What do? They buy their beans back from Gloria. She's created a business model, an experience, a value set for spreading the experience and nobility of coffee. This isn't Starbucks. This is Cafeotech. And as I sat there thinking about writing about innovation, I couldn't help realize that I was surprised myself. I went in to try to write about breakthroughs, and I was sitting inside of one. I was sitting inside of a breakthrough innovation that surprised me. And I realized a couple things. First, breakthrough innovations, they provide an element of surprise, delight. But second, and maybe more importantly, in order to create these kind of things, in order for me to write my book, I had to surprise myself. I had to find surprise inside of myself, challenge my assumptions, find a little bit of insight in order to do something that surprises others. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the dynamics there. This is a missing ingredient, I think, of most innovation discussions, sometimes design. That surprise is this missing ingredient that we're not really talking about that is so important. It's really the essence of what we're really trying to do, positive surprise. Now, there's a lot of great examples out there. These are some big innovations that we've seen out there in the world. iPad, Netflix, they've changed the game in various ways. I'm going to ask you just to yell out, what are some of your favorite breakthroughs? It can be anything at all. What do you got for me? Yell something out. The pencil. iPhone. Fire, the wheel. Okay, what else you got for me? Digital video. Atari? I love that. I used to play Atari. Well, some of my favorite are Pop Rocks. You guys know Pop Rocks? Pop Rocks are so great. Pop Rocks, here you guys go. You're all there. You don't even know that I'm throwing Pop Rocks at you. There you are. I'm like hitting you with Pop Rocks in the face. And all right, I'm going to throw some back there. All right, now, oh, you want some right here. Okay, I'll try to get them over there. Now, let me just ask a quick. Pop Rocks are so awesome. I love Pop Rocks. Here you guys go. Tell me, is there anyone here who's never had Pop Rocks? I just want, you've never had Pop Rocks? Can you please stand up and come over here? I want you just to come up over here. What is your name? Chris Miller has never had Pop Rocks. I don't know what cave she grew up in. Okay. Oh, Chicago. Okay. So, Chris, here's what we're going to do. So, you're just going to take this. Just take the whole pack. And what you need to do is you just pour the whole thing in your mouth and just let it sit on your tongue.
I've seen people do this.
I'm not going to give you a Coke afterwards. Don't worry. It's okay. You can do it. Just the whole thing in your mouth. You know, you can stand right here, face everybody. Okay, just let it smoosh around a little bit. Okay, get the juices going. Okay, now open your mouth. It's not working. There we go. Go for it. Ah, yeah. Thank you, Chris. You can have a seat. Okay. Success. Okay, now, when I was a kid, when I first tried Pop Rocks, I had a response that reminded me kind of the response in Cafeotech. I thought to myself, candy's not supposed to do that. I didn't know candy could do that. Now Chris knows candy can do that too. But the essence of that is that I got surprised at age 7 or wherever I first tried Pop Rocks, and I got the same element of surprise at Cafeotech. And that's what all of these breakthrough innovations are doing. Now, how many of you have read an innovation book in the last year where somebody's talked about innovation? Yeah, a lot of you. There's never been more books, resources, blogs on the topic. Last year, there were 250 books with the title Innovation published in a 3-month period. We're overwhelmed with innovation, so we should have it right? Well, we also know that we don't all have it right. Look at these companies. Borders, Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Encyclopedia Britannica. What do all of these companies have in common? That's right. You never want to start your company with the letter B. Key lesson. Okay. But really, when you look at the kinds of innovations you need and kind of how you need to delight the market, our brains, I did some research on this for my book, our brains are actually wired to appreciate positive surprise. When we experience surprise, the neurons light up in our brains. We crave surprise, and we can see that in our culture. I want you to be honest. Raise your hand if you've seen this show. Okay, all right. Quarter of you. Storage Wars. Huge show. Broke all records from A&E when it first came out. 6 million viewers a week. What is it? The premise is in the 2008 downturn, the storage industry started foreclosing on storage lockers. And so people stopped paying their storage fees, and they the storage company put their own lock on it. And now what they're doing is they're auctioning off lockers to the highest bidder. So these people on the screen, they go up and they bid for the locker. And then what they do is they can't see what's inside. So what they then do is they win. They pay thousands of dollars for these lockers that they don't even know really what's inside. And then they have to go through it. And you see them going through it. Then they get it appraised, and then they sell it secondhand. And that's how they make a living. But the essence of this, 6 million viewers a week. Then there were 2 more knockoff shows, added 2 more million viewers a week. 8 million people are watching storage reality TV. That's more than the CBS Evening News. Well, why? Because it's all about the element of surprise. You want to see what's inside. You get excited. You get delighted. The surprise element is front and center with this, and it's demonstrated in our culture. Now, there are examples of little surprises and big surprises all over the place, and sometimes they fly under the radar. Well, after I started writing my book, I teach in the Netherlands at a university, and I started to just kind of be more attuned to what I was seeing. This is an example of it. This is a restaurant, and you walk in, normal restaurant, but this is the menu. The menu is a little box with a deck of cards, and each card is a menu item. Now, that's a very small illustration of how to create surprise, but it brings people back. It keeps people talking. There's a viral element to this. Here's another example. This is a movie theater in Paris. How many people have purchased a ticket for a movie in the last year? Only a third of you? What are you guys doing with your lives? All right, so this movie theater, you go in, you can buy a ticket, but they're doing something in France which could revolutionize a business model here in the U.S. We haven't adopted it yet. They sell a monthly pass. You can buy a pass for about 30 euros, and you can go as much as you want. Well, typically you won't go alone, so you probably bring a friend. They'll buy a pass, your family. So what they've done is they've created a subscription experience model for going to the movies. It's simple, but it really challenges a business model that's so long held, especially here in the U.S., that could be an innovation. So here's another example. This is a vintage clothing store in San Francisco. Vintage by the pound. You go in and you pick up your clothes and you don't pay per piece, you weigh it. $12 a pound. Huge opportunity here for you guys. Their signage needs a little help. The essence of surprise is that when something happens that we don't expect that's positive, typically we want to understand how it works a little bit more. We're engaged with it. We also want to experience it more. I know there's a desire to have more Pop Rocks right there. So give me more. No, but we want to experience it. Think about the first time you touched an iPad or an iPhone, and you wanted to share that experience with someone else. You said, look at this, because you wanted to get the delight, a piece of the delight from their delight, their surprise. So there's this viral element. Just think about a lot of the YouTube videos that fly around virally. There's a lot of element of surprise to that. But the problem is we need to disengage autopilot. And I'm going to share with you a video that illustrates some of the dynamics and challenges of creating surprise for ourselves and for our organizations.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door, everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
That's terrifying. It's terrifying. But those norms that create culture that we live within exist all around us. My grandfather challenged those norms of the fur design industry in the 1960s. But it's not easy to do that. There's a lot of times there's pushback. How do you just go along with the crowd in the elevator, or do you really step out and push back? Well, part of my research, I was looking at business and surprises. I went to Amazon and I did a search on business books with surprise in their titles. 100% of them, every one of them. How do you avoid, minimize, prevent, reduce surprises in business? Not surprising. We hate surprise, but we want innovation. It's a paradox. Well, you could look at arguably one of the most innovative companies in the world who says there is no formula. No, everyone's looking for the formula for innovation. What you need to do is you need to try stuff out. You need to push boundaries. You need to challenge your own assumptions and other people's assumptions to come up with new stuff. You guys all know that. Friend of mine started, anyone use OpenTable to make a reservation? Number of you? Friend of mine started OpenTable. His name's Chuck. Chuck came to me when I was at HP and had a business plan. He said, Soren, I want to start a company. It's called Easy Eats. Easy Eats, Chuck. Are you serious? I'll look at your business plan and give you feedback. I gave him feedback. I didn't start it with him. It's now OpenTable, $2 billion market cap company. Oops, on my behalf. But what Chuck said is that he went out and he had 17 competitors. One of the things he wanted to do is he wanted to create kind of a lock on the competition. And he went to New York City. He wanted to get the top restaurateur in New York, Danny Meyer, to sign up on his system. Danny said, Chuck, I like your system, but I don't need your service. My tables are full every night. That completely destroyed his business plan. But what Chuck said is, what doesn't Danny Meyer know? And Danny Meyer didn't know one thing. He didn't know who was sitting at his tables. So Chuck created a whole system so restaurants could understand who the people are coming into their restaurants, in addition to booking new reservations. That became the pillar of this business model, which didn't start out that way. So it's all about kind of adapting and flexing and looking at your environment and challenging your assumptions about what you're doing. Now, I do that in my work. I'm just going to give you a couple quick examples. These are all kind of IDEO-like design sessions. But for business, what we need to help our students do is learn how to take high levels of ambiguity and uncertainty and craft them into something tangible for others to see and understand. This is something I did with Levi's, red wire jeans, kind of the iPod jean. This is a service design concept from Philips. Philips Design created this on a project I was working on that led to the acquisition of Lifeline, which is that help by falling I can't get up service. Dog food. New concepts of dog food where you pour stuff on. I work with Science Diet. They then take their concepts, they prototype them, test them with consumers to get real-time feedback. This is point of sale. This is Red Bull. Creative design sessions turn into 3D rendering, turn into manufacturing within weeks. We need to live in the fog ourselves and be comfortable with that and help our students live in the fog so that they can create clarity for others. Now, I'm not going to go through all these bullet points. This is a summary of everything I said. All these slides are available to you online. I'll show you a website link at the end. But the essence of it is that breakthroughs create positive surprise, and we need to surprise ourselves before we can surprise others. Now, we're all teaching. We're all in the classroom. This is just a model around retention and learning that I've used in the past. This is from my publisher, actually. A lot of you are doing hands-on stuff, which is great because it's retained by students. What is the opportunity? And I ask you to challenge you, what is the opportunity to create positive surprise in the classroom? Every day or periodically to keep the students off balance and continually learning. There's a number of different ways. Kind of what's the pop rocks of your topic? How do you create that surprise? There was a great discussion yesterday with the students about, I'm going to graduate, I just need a job. How do I differentiate myself out of the pile of resumes? Well, the question is, how can you give surprising insights about who you're designing for the customer so that your students can speak to them in a way that surprises them as they're going out to get a job? Other things you can do. There's various ways in which to do immersions. This dog food example. We went and brought a team to Whole Foods to get inspiration for dog food. And now we're coming out with a line of artisan dog foods. I know, it sounds kind of crazy, but dog food is a bigger industry than baby food. So, there's a lot of other things that you can do. This is a mural in San Francisco. When I came back from France, I wanted to give my family an experience, a continued experience of stretching. And so we realized that in our backyard in San Francisco, we had never been to the Mission District. We had never seen the murals from the Latino community that describe their struggle in America around how do you kind of survive and tell stories and bring community together. So we spent time there. It opened our eyes to what was right in front of us and gave us some additional surprise. Those surprises are all around us. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'll take a question or two, and then I'm going to actually open it up again for an innovation quiz, trivia show, where you have a chance to win some highly valuable prizes, as I mentioned. So are there any questions at this point? And we'll see if there are. If there's not, that's okay. There's one back here. We got a microphone coming from behind you right there. There you go.
Hi. Surprise is, we all understand, a wonderful thing. But it's not something that you can engineer. You can't engineer surprise. So what do you do to create fertile ground to encourage surprising things to happen?
I agree you can't engineer it, but I think you can create context for it, like you just said. You can push students and yourself to go look in places that you don't expect there to be any relevance at all. Why would dog food people go to Whole Foods? They also went to a day spa and all had treatments. I mean, they had massages in order to understand, kind of find linkages that they wouldn't expect to exist. So there's some great books on creating connections to things that you don't think are connected. A lot of innovation happens that way. So bring in examples and stories and other professors to talk about things that you think are completely unrelated to what you're doing and force that connection. You will find connections. That's one way. Get out there in the world. My feeling is that you will not innovate if you sit at your desk in front of your computer. In the way that you will innovate is if you go out there and you talk to people who you either are kind of the targets of your design or ideally even the non-targets of your design, and who kind of represent kind of those laggards or lead users for what you're going to do. So getting out there into the real world and talking to people and asking them questions and engaging them is another way, or just bringing them into the classroom could be as well. I mean, it's all about finding connections to things that aren't connected and getting yourself outside of your own comfort zone. One last one back here, and then I'm going to open it up for some highly valuable prizes. Okay.
Hi. You have in your book a chapter in your book on failure, and I was wondering if you would address that a little bit. There's been a lot of talk lately about this sort of failure culture, or the cult of failure, I guess sounds better, in Silicon Valley, et cetera. And I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about how failure works into the...
Yeah. So the whole topic of failure I could talk about for a whole presentation, but the essence of it is if you're really going after a big innovation, you will fail. You'll fail. But if you're really going after big innovation, you don't even look at it as failure. You look at it as learning. And so the Silicon Valley mindset is stuff's going to happen. It's not what you predicted. How do you learn from it quickly? How do you take the bad stuff and respond to it just like Chuck from Open Table did? And how do you take the good stuff and really see what it's telling you and leverage it and enhance it to move forward? Failure is a necessary part of the innovation process. The challenge with organizations is that a lot of times if you fail, you lose your job, which then sends a bad message about kind of failure. But if you really are trying to create a culture and the norms, you role model and you learn from your failure and you highlight, you know what? We failed, but we learned something, and here's what we're doing now based on that learning. And that's it's a very subtle, soft thing, but it's role modeled by leadership, and it can be role modeled to students as well. So, with that, we are going to have an innovation trivia show where you can win some highly valuable prizes that are in this bag and in this bag, okay? So, I'm going to test your innovation savvy. There are some key messages here as well that are important to take away. I'm going to show you how it works, but here's what you've got to do. I'm going to ask you a question. You have to be the first person that I hear to yell out the correct answer, okay? So you should just yell it out. If I hear it, I'll point to you. If you're in the back and you say, here's the answer, I'm not going to hear it, and you won't win this highly valuable prize set up here, okay? Ready? First one, WD-40. How many failures did WD-40 have before they got it right? 39. 39 failures for their big breakthrough. Congratulations. You get the leapfrogging book. All right. They had to fail over and over and over, but then persist that last time. That's why it's called WD-40. Wikipedia, one of the top 10 most visited websites in the world every day. In the first 2 years of existence, how many entries did they have? 0? 39? 3? 1, 8? 28, somebody said? Who said 28? 28. Oh, we have a tie. We're going to get it back here. He was in my presentation yesterday and saw this. Not, who had it? Who had it? All right, you want to pass it back? Pass it all the way back. All right. Wrigley gum. Mr. Wrigley did not start out selling gum. He started out selling something else. What was it? Hopefully you use it every day. Soap. Who said soap? Soap. So, yeah, right. Okay. Congratulations. You get another highly valuable prize. There you go. Leapfrogging book. Congratulations. Okay. Next, soap and baking soda. So, Mr. Wrigley was selling soap and baking soda and giving away a piece of gum as a perk to his customers. They liked the gum more than the soap and baking soda, so he decided to go into that business. Turned into Wrigley. iPhone. How many years did it take from idea to in market to get the iPhone out? 3. Who said 3? Okay. Another highly valuable prize. You get the Griffin gift certificate. Congratulations. There you go. They're getting better. My book was the consolation prizes. You get the, okay. 3 years. That is an eternity in technology. That required some serious commitment and staying power to make that happen. Now, it also required some investment. So part 2, how much did Apple invest? 3 million? 3 billion? 7 million? Apple is very secretive. I'm assuming you know how secretive Apple is, so I'd be surprised if you knew it. I don't know either, but it was a lot. All right. Last one. YouTube. YouTube did not start out as YouTube as we know it. It started out as something else, a specialty website of some sort. What kind of website was it? Not merchandising. Not chat. How to. Who's dating? Dating website. What is your name? Marie says a dating website. I think Marie was the only one to use it as a dating website because it failed. It was a failed dating website. You're going to upload pictures of yourself, and then somebody else would see it, and they'd do that. So Marie gets the Shop SCAD gift card. So congratulations here. There you go. All right, now the final question. I talked earlier on about my own personal history. I had a choice point, that fork in the road, and I missed out potentially on a big opportunity. Anyone have a sense of what it was? It was an open table. I could have gone to design school. You already won. Who said going to SCAD? So in 1987, I got a letter in the mail which was an offer to attend SCAD on a scholarship. Oops, I didn't do it. Sorry, President Wallace. Yeah, I'm sure you did. But I'm back, and I've been really happy to learn more about you. You are definitely a different organization from back then. I didn't go to design school back then. But it's been a real pleasure. Who said going to SCAD? I'm not going to go all the way up there now, but what you're going to get is the case of Pop Rocks Extreme for your efforts. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, President Wallace. Thank you, Coy and Beth. And a very special thank you to our speaker, Soren Kaplan. Have a great year, and I will see you at the Fine Arts and the ATV Fest and the many other amazing events that will be happening in winter 2014. Thank you. Have a great quarter.